extraordinary opportunity today to talk to this amazing man, and we thought you might want to join us. So we're recording this, we'll pop it up on some of our other platforms, but if you want to know how success happens, this is a great example. So yes, Dan, I'm really well. Welcome.
Good, thank you. I'm glad that's exciting to be in Australia.
Yeah, exactly right.
I feel like you're there. I feel like I'm visiting you there.
Yes, exactly.
I'm in your office.
Sitting across the desk here.
Feels like
this was such a chance meeting. You know, I do believe in synchronicities 100%, and I know that you also do, Dan. So we met in a breakfast room. I can't even remember the name of the hotel that you obviously were staying at. I was staying at. We met in the breakfast room, and the night before, this is how our conversation went, everyone. I said, you know, hello, Dan, had just run in from a run pretty much down the coast. And I did go down the coast where you told me to go the day after, and that was beautiful. And he'd run in, breakfast was nearly over. We said, oh, you're running this breakfast. And I said, what are you doing here in Monaco? We were in Monaco last September. And you said, I just played at the Palace last night for the Prince.
Yes.
And we sort of laughed like, you know, haha, what are you really doing here? But no, that was what he was really doing there, playing for the Prince of Monaco in the Palace the night before. And the band, you were a fill-in, is that correct, Dan?
Yeah, I'm a regular fill-in, but yes, it's not I can't claim that I'm a regular member of the band.
Yeah, but
all truth, all veracity.
Divulge all of that.
Yeah, exactly.
The point was
full disclosure.
This band was playing for the Prince, and they were short. One of their team couldn't get there, and so they called Dan in. And to me, that's like, yeah, more than a body double, right? You're doing the real thing, delivering the music.
Yes.
Now, before I go any further, this man, I said to him, how long have you been a musician? And now we've just clarified that again, 50 years. And he started at age 15, publicly.
I started officially being a jazz musician at 15, but started playing when I was 10 and 11. Yeah. I got my first guitar at Christmas of my 11th year, which is my birthday's in June. So I was exactly 11 and a half. That's how it was like, and I dreamed I was getting that guitar that night. I dreamed about the guitar.
There you go. You know, I was saying to Dan in the restaurant, and we didn't know each other before that moment, and he was asking me what I did, and I was asking him what he did, and I was fascinated with the fact that you're a musician and you've earned your living being a musician. And so my ears pricked up, and I thought, this is what the community that I'm involved in and the people that I reach out to and teach, they all want more of what they really believe is for them. And here you were living it. And so I just couldn't wait to talk to you about your journey. Now, I've got some facts and figures here in front of me that I am going to walk through, but I want to weave into it really the mindset. And it's more than mindset. It's, it's about your awareness, the vision that you had, how you started to embody it. And you've got some great quotes, which we'll come to. So where to start? The first thing I want to say is this amazing musician, Dan Balmer, you can see his name written there. Please look him up. Beautiful music. And he's just released his latest album called When the Night. So look that up, When the Night. It's his 10th studio album, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah. And so there's plenty of his music out there. And I don't know about you, but I know my clients and I are always looking for beautiful music that you can just, use to feel good. That's what it does. And I love your music. So that's only been out since November. So please go and look that up. And you've got your two, and this was fascinating. You've got an organist and a drummer.
Yes.
Right. Dan is a jazz guitarist. And so then he's got these accompaniments, and it's just fascinating. So we met in Monaco last year. You grew up in Portland,
yes,
which is where you are right now.
Yes, I've stayed here my whole life, which is rare for a musician. Most people move to New York or Los Angeles and maybe come back or not. You go to the big cities, but I was able to make a living here there was a good scene, and still be able to get into bands that play all over the world. So that's kind of having your cake and eating it too. And for
Yeah.
me, I have two sons, and for them to grow up near their grandparents, both on my ex-wife's side, but my parents and her parents,
Yeah.
that was really important. So family was important, and lifestyle is important. This is a beautiful city. It's doesn't have, it's not New York, it's not LA. It doesn't have that big city
Yeah.
issues sometimes, and so I've been lucky to stay here my whole life. So I'm still here.
Yeah. Yeah. A great place for inspiration, I would think too,
Yeah.
rather than the concrete jungle. And as you just alluded to, it's a great jazz scene there, which I
Yes.
was unaware of until I read some
Especially,
articles.
well, especially growing up, when I was coming up, this was a, very, very good city, disproportionately, it's always been a very intellectual city, a lot of bookstores, a lot of people, a lot of people who are thinking and creative people. And so I was very fortunate, the scene was good, musicians made a living, and it was an affordable city. It was a city where people could buy
Yeah.
houses, and musicians could buy houses, and
Yeah.
cities, musicians can't buy houses.
Yeah.
Not New York at all.
No, that's right. Um, you had, I've taken some notes from various places where, people have spoken to you before, and you said way back then you played with other great musicians and some famous ones as well. So in your teenage years, would that have been?
Well, mostly starting in my late teens, early 20s, I played with guys
Yeah.
that, jazz famous. They're not pop famous. It's not Britney
No.
Spears, but people, great artists, people who are, and there's a big difference between people who are popular and, people who
Yeah.
sell millions of records, and then people who are really artists, and music. And we all like
So,
all sorts of different stuff, but it's, when I play with Pink Martini, that's a very famous band. They've sold millions of records, and they play, for 3,000 seat rooms all the time. Uh,
yes.
but I've also played with people that are really great artists, and you're playing for 50 people. So it's,
Yes.
art and
Yeah.
commerce are not the same thing. So I've
No,
been lucky
and
to do a little bit of both.
yeah. And that's what you were doing in Monaco that night with Pink
Yeah.
Martini, right? You'd gotten that gig there. So you were 14 years old, and there was a man, let me see if I can say his name, Larry Coryell, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
He really influenced you.
Yeah, I mean, I really heard his guitar playing, and it was like, and back then, there wasn't, the internet where there's, you can hear any music ever made at any point in time right now. With YouTube, you can see Claude Debussy playing his own composition. You can see stuff from the early 1900s. You can see George Gershwin, the great, great people. But, back when I was young, if you got a record, that was all you had to listen to. You had 5 records. That's all you could listen to. You could listen to radio, but not for artistic music, not for jazz. And so my brother had brought me this record, and when I listened to it, I kind of went zing. That's the thing. I
Yeah.
got really excited.
So you
And
listen to that over and over, I'm
over and
imagining,
over, over and over. Yeah,
right?
that's all there was to
And
do. Yeah.
yes. Now, this is really intriguing to me. So, I probably asked you this over breakfast. Poor man, he was running late for breakfast. There's me trying to talk to him while he's trying to eat because breakfast was about finished.
Good breakfast, though, right?
It was good.
Good restaurant. Really good.
Yeah, yeah. So you made a statement, everyone influences me because I love it all. And I
Yeah.
love that statement. Like
Oh,
I
thank
can
you.
feel in you, like you just said, you're an artist. You weren't out there to make millions. That wasn't what you thought as a young person. You were like, I want to be a musician. Can you tell me and everyone that might be tuning in here, because I talk a lot about desire and how powerful desire is, and how desire is the effort of the unexpressed possibility in us looking for expression with and through us. And when I met you that day, I could almost feel that, like you weren't about how everything looks. You were like, this is what I do. This is who I am. Can you tell me when you first became aware that that's what you were going to pursue?
Well, yeah, I mean, when I was little, I would pretend I was a musician. Some of my favorite memories was being, 7 years old and pretending to be in a band, and playing the
Yeah.
broom like a bass,
Yeah.
holding a broom, which is long, or a tennis racket, which is small like a guitar. And a lot of professional guitar players my age used to do that. Like they pretended, I pretended
Yes.
I was a musician, and you pretend you were singing in a band. And I just loved the notion of that. My mother was a piano teacher. My brothers were into music. And
Yeah.
so, when I got that first guitar, I remember I was taught some guitar, and a lot of this, is probably partly to 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 fulfill, I mean, to show the world. I mean, I think a lot of people, I mean, I think a lot of people who
Yes.
get good at things feel like they need to show the world that they can do it. It's,
Yes.
I
Yes.
wish, and I hope this, this may go against, your, what your theory is or what, but I mean,
No, no.
I didn't just do this because it was just some beautiful thing that I'm just beautiful about. I did it
No.
because I wanted to show everybody that
Yes.
that I was something and I could do it. And so even when
Yes.
I first learned a couple guitar chords, I can remember being in the back of the family station wagon and pretending that like some cute girl from school, like in second grade, third
Yes.
grade, would see me playing the guitar and think, wow,
Yes.
that he's
Yes.
playing the guitar. I thought it was really cool. It was my
Yeah.
vision of really cool. And I loved doing it. First of all, I liked playing it. What I loved about pursuing music was that if you worked at it, you got better. And
Yeah.
I think if there's anything that you're sort of made to do or really want to do, you will get better, every time.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
and I did, I tried, and I still feel that way. I played yesterday, and I mean, I play almost every day. I play, 4 or 5 gigs a week. And yesterday I'm playing, and there's nobody listening. I'm in a wine bar with a very good bass player. But on my very first solo of the tune, I really went to some great places that in my I've probably played 8,500 gigs. I've probably played 8,500 shows because I've played 4 or 5 nights a week for 40 years, and that's what it adds up
Yeah.
to. But I still find I can find something new and I can get better every
I
time,
love it.
always at the middle of the path. So I loved doing it. And then I also had to do it. And I always say, I mean, and there's been times in my career in my 20s and in my 30s and in my 40s when I'd wake up in the middle of the night, panicked, about
Yeah.
not getting there, not doing it, not
Yeah.
succeeding. And
Yes.
when other good young guitar players would come up and they would be, the new thing in town, the good looking young new guitar player, I'd be like, "Ah," and I
Yes.
would practice more and I would,
Yes.
get out there and play and make it happen.
Yeah.
I would not, I would not. So there's a quote that says, I probably said this in the hotel, they tell people, don't be an author, don't be a writer unless you cannot not be a writer because it's too hard. It's too hard to
Yes.
get books published. There's no success. It's almost impossible. It's the same with being a musician, but I could not do it. I would not let myself succeed. And so,
I love that.
but then, and then I'm lucky also, I mean, there's always luck in everything too. I mean, my parents were supportive, my parents they were for me,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't have insurmountable, and I have natural technique. I'm good
Yes.
at playing a certain. I mean, I'm good at playing the guitar naturally.
Yeah.
I'm not good at a lot of there's a lot of aspects of music that I'm not super good at naturally, but I'm good at playing, and so
Yes.
it helped. I had some what they call in economics a comparative advantage. It's like growing
Yeah.
bananas in Costa Rica. Costa Rica has
Yes.
a comparative advantage in banana
Yes.
growing
You
over
know, you said
Alaska.
before, maybe this goes against what we teach it, and it certainly doesn't. And this is the points I wanted to make, because when I met you that day, I thought, I could feel your passion for it. And you did say straight away that you didn't look at anything else. Like you knew, like you said, you could not do it. This was in you. And yes, you wanted to impress and you wanted to show people you could do it, but that's the nature of a desire in us. It's not to keep it in us, it's to express it. And that's exactly what you've done. I like what you said when things come along and you think, oh, now there's a bit of fear. And you actually made the statement in another interview that I was reading, you had this fear of failure. And
Yes.
it was almost
Yes.
like, I'm not going to fail at this. I refuse to fail at this. I'm going to get up and I'm going to be better and better
I'm going
every
to
day.
get going. Yeah.
I love that.
And I don't stop.
Yeah. And so here you are, 50
Yeah.
years on, and you're still going, and you've just released an album, and you'll keep creating. Like you said, you're an artist, and that's important. And I guess for those listening to this, these are the points. I wanted to speak with Dan so badly because I thought this man has embodied what we teach. And really, it's not just what we teach, it's the law. Like, it's the law of the universe. If you want to be successful, like express the success that's in you, then you've got to keep going and get better every day. I like your statement I wrote down, always in the middle of the path. It never ends.
Yes.
You know, there's only more.
Yeah, you're
Now,
never even closer to the end. You're just always
yeah,
in the middle.
that's right. My mentor in mindset was Bob Proctor, and he died at 87. And he said to me, I only knew him in the last 6 years of his life, and we were very good friends. And he said to me, I've only just got started. And he'd been doing it 60 years. I
Yeah.
thought, whoa, you know.
Well, that's a beautiful thing that you can keep growing into, you know, and I think a lot of things you can if that's your attitude. I think you see a
Yeah,
lot of people stopped growing a long time ago, and they
yeah,
shouldn't, whether in their professional life or their personal life, their spiritual life.
yeah,
You know, they stopped at 23 or stopped trying at 26 or they
yeah,
stopped studying at 39 or whatever, but you can keep going
yeah.
deeper into everything.
And the thing you said, which is really important, I just want to underline it again, is don't, if you're here watching this and you're thinking, you know, I'd like to be this, like I'm interested in being this. Dan wasn't just interested in it. He said, I could not do it. You want to pursue the thing that you just really desire to be and to do and to share with everyone out there. You said in your journey, Tom Grant, who was a pianist, and you played a lot with him in the 1990s, so he is a pianist.
Yes, yes.
Tell me what happened there. He really liked your tunes, and it sounds like you sort of moved on in to his space, and then it became quite lucrative.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a funny thing. The way jazz music works is a lot of times you have to kind of, you know, it's not, you know, I mean, so what I've done, you know, to make a living as a musician, is one of the rarest, hardest things to do in creative music. And, you know, I mean, in any kind of music, it's very rare and hard. But when you're doing your own music, you know, it's one thing if you play in a symphony, you have to be really great, but you never have to write a song. You know, you just have to play perfectly and fit in and be a great.
Do as they tell you.
You're not playing, you're not making your own music. So to really do your own music, and you know, it's not like you go get a degree and then people go, oh, you're ready, like a doctor, and then or a lawyer or an accountant. Oh, now you can do your thing. I mean, you only can do your thing if other musicians want to play with you and people want to listen to you. You know, there's no piece of paper that gets you there. So a tradition for young musicians is you go try and get to know the people who are working and going. And Tom was a great musician, played with some of the best musicians in the world, and was playing around Portland. And I would go take my guitar and amplifier, just go play for nothing. And he was supportive of me and was nice about it. But he was partly nice because the club, you know, felt like I added a lot, and people started coming out and they wanted to know if I was going to be there as Dan playing tonight. So I created a demand for myself. So the first time I got hired with him, the club really hired me. They said, look, Tom, we'll pay Dan. We want him to be there. And so I got in playing with him. And then he was, you know, as is always the case, these people are, you know, influences on you and you learn from them. And that turned into a very, very successful band. We played all over the country for 10 years and you know, made a good living and had good audiences and made good music. And that was a great, you know, wonderful time of life. You know, we were famous.
And you said, yeah, that's right. And you said that the tunes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but these were some of your tunes that he started to play.
Yeah. And that was a big
deal. That's right. And then some movie producers got onto those and used them in there.
I had a song from one of his records that was in a movie, you know, a real, you know, not a made for TV movie, you know, a real movie starring Alan Alda, who was very famous back then because he was in a TV show called MASH. and he was
Yes,
and he directed this movie. But yeah, and that was, to go to a movie theater and hear your song and see your name at the end.
exactly.
That was a
Yeah,
thrill, and that, so a lot of
absolutely.
great, and my songs were on the radio and on other TV shows, and that was
Yeah,
great, at that time, that point in time. And so yeah, there was a lot of wonderful things happened, those
absolutely.
things.
You listed some of those, like you said, at that point you'd worked for 8 years, 5 nights a week, playing for 5 nights a week for 8 years. And that really paved the way for record deals. And, you bought your house, you developed your writing, your playing and mixing with those people that were
Yes.
up there and doing it. You said at one point there, because we were listing some of the ways that you obtain success, and I've taken a lot of notice of what you said here. And you said looking to grow, always looking to grow, saying yes to opportunities and seeking opportunities. And I see them as very pivotal. Like
Well,
you could
yeah, I
have
mean,
sat
you
home
can't,
and
yeah, you can't. I mean, the thing about, yeah, I mean, you couldn't stop. So when Tom's band broke up, I was 33. And, we had been the top of the scene. We were the number one band in the northwestern United States, and we made the most money, and we had the biggest crowds, and we, everybody liked our music. And then, when he broke up the band, which inevitably happens, then I was sort of on my own, and I was trying to get my own career going. And I probably, I might have been able to do a better job of that. I mean, you can only do what you do. You can only follow
yeah,
one path at a time. You can't see all the other paths at once. But so,
yeah,
but jazz music started to change, and the music we were very popular for was music called smooth jazz or pop jazz. And jazz music sort of, and this is all specific to my career, but jazz music sort of reverted back to a more traditional approach. And so whereas the music we were playing, people wore, irregular clothes, guys went back to wearing suit and tie, jazz became sort of like older jazz. And I
yeah,
wasn't very good at this jazz. I'm as good at it, but I was not good at it like the best guy in town. And so I had to sort of endeavor to remake myself at,
yeah.
at, at that point in time. So I sort of remade myself in my 30s to be able to function in this new world. So in other words,
Mm,
I never just went, oh, okay, the world's changed and they don't appreciate me anymore. I mean, I got different guitars, I practiced, I played with different people, and that
yeah.
a lot of the music I've done in the last 30 years, I've done more music that's like that than the music we played with Tom. In other words, I completely made myself
Change.
fit into another thing, which I still loved because it was still guitar and it was still music I loved, but it was just like, there's the challenge. It's like,
Yes.
this is what's going on. Unfortunately, it's not what I've been doing the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And there was a great guitar player. In fact, the guy that I subbed for in Pink Martini, who's my good friend, and he had moved to town, and he was very good at this other style of playing, and he was handsome and younger. And that I was sick, that made me sick to my stomach. I was,
Mm,
it
mm.
was upsetting to kind of lose your place. And
Yes.
but I never gave up, basically.
No, that's
Never give
right.
up. And you just never surrender. Um,
Yeah.
and so I've got sort of a lot of that going, and kept,
Yeah.
kept changing myself. I play in a band now called Trio Subtonic, and the two of the guys are 25 years younger than me, and another guy is 35
Yeah.
years younger. And
Yeah.
it's young people music. It's jam band music. It's spacey and
Yeah.
noisy, rocking. And I play a different guitar and different effects, completely
Yeah.
opposite what I play with Pink Martini. But
Yeah.
I love doing that too, and that harkens back to my early days in rock and roll and fusion music. And so, um, you know,
I love it.
I feel like I keep trying, and but trying means, I think a real key here, if we're really talking about this, trying means not, it doesn't necessarily mean doing, it certainly doesn't mean doing what everybody else does or what they tell you to do. I have a lot of
No.
students at universities studying music and their teacher says, do this, do this, do this, do this. And, one size doesn't fit all. So I'm always trying to tell my students, yeah, you need to work hard. Yeah, you need to work hard, but make sure you're working on the things that, you want to jump through the hoops and you want to be able to do it, but you have to be you. You have to always remember who you are, because the only thing you're better at than anybody else is you. And so like the only thing I can do better than any, because there's, everybody, there's a lot of guys play a lot of great guitar, and I can play guitar like just about anybody. But theoretically, the one thing I can do better than anybody is my music and being me. And so I always tell my students, they're going like, oh, I'm trying to do this, or I'm trying to do that. And sometimes I say, don't try and, do what you're supposed to do to get through school, do what you're, learn all that. That's great. But don't lose track of the one thing that's special, and that's you.
Yes, yes, that is spot on. You have no idea how spot on that is from what we teach, because that's what drew me to you that day was you're just so cool, as in you're just doing your thing. And you said to me, you've always done your thing. And like you said, yeah, you were seeking opportunity. You didn't stop trying, as in not forcing it, but just saying, I'm here.
You got to survive. You've got to exist, right?
And you said a word earlier, I never surrendered, you said, but what you did surrender to was the desire in you. So you just said, you know what, I'm going to surrender to that, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. And you were open to whatever it takes. And like you said, it's been up and down and all over the shop, which has only broadened who you are as a musician, as an artist, which I love. I'm just going to look at a few here. You had another development, and I did like just picking out a few things that you said here. So gold. You said create a demand for yourself. So for all of those watching this, and I really encourage you to listen to this again and pick up what Dan's saying here. He created a demand for himself. You can do that with confidence when you have a desire, a burning desire inside of you, because you know it's the life in you going, this is what's looking to be put out there. So keep going, persist like Dan has and does. And you said here, you'd always wanted to tour internationally. And then you met a singer, Diane Schuur, is that right?
Yes.
Schuur?
Yeah, she's famous. She was famous. She won 2 Grammy Awards. She's a 2-time Grammy winner. She's famous.
Wow.
She was the #1 selling jazz artist in the early 90s.
How did that, and the reason I'm asking you, how did that happen? Because that saw you fulfill that want.
Yeah. Well,
you went to 18 countries.
Yeah, which was great. Yeah. So it was the way jazz music works a lot of times is and like anything, it's people. So there was a bass player in Portland named Scott Steed, who was her musical director, even though she lives in California. And he said, he'd like to get me on the gig. And, that's because he thought I would add, he thought what I had would bring value to the band. And so my ex-wife and I were shopping for a minivan, and I got a phone call, and he's like, hey, do you want to go to Japan for a week? And like, to me, that was like my dream come true. I mean, partly the reason I take so much, it brings me so much joy is because this is what I wanted to do. Like, in my hometown is Nike, the sports company is in Portland company. And I know a lot of Nike people, and they're flying all over the world all the time, but it's no fun. They don't like it because it's not, they're not excited to go to Amsterdam for a meeting and then fly to Rome for a meeting. That's just like, but to me, to go to Amsterdam means there's a demand for me to play the guitar in Amsterdam. That's why I'm going. Yes. And I always thought that would be so cool. And that when I get there, somebody meets me and takes me to my hotel, and then they take me to where I'm supposed to play. I mean, to me, that was like my dream. I wanted to be a baseball player when I was little, but after that, I wanted to, and it was in my mind, tour the world. I mean, that was like just like a catchphrase of like, that would be so cool. And in other words, that was my vision. And music was my vision, but also just being a musician. So the notion of getting on an airplane that somebody else has paid for the ticket. You're getting paid to be there, and you're not there in Europe as a tourist, like, oh, get in line to this. You're there because they want you there. They're paying you to be there. You're not,
Yes.
you're not the ugly American tourist. You're a guest. You're invited. You're invited to Moscow, Russia. You're invited
Yes.
to Bulgaria, Sofia, Bulgaria, and
Yes.
they're glad you're there. They're happy to show you. So
Yes.
to me, that was my vision of like, wow, wouldn't that be cool? And then when it happened, I really felt like, wow, this is cool.
Yes. Dan,
so,
did you ever have a moment, like as I look through your, the timeline of how things, and I know there'd be hundreds of stories you could tell me, but these big events, like when Diane, you got on that gig and you were all around the world, did you ever have a time where, your breath, it took your breath away and you felt like you were an imposter ever? Did you ever feel that?
Well, I don't think so. An imposter.
Yeah.
That's a
Good.
funny thought. No, I mean, I felt like this is where I'm meant to be. This is me.
Yes. Now,
And
would you say,
go ahead. Let me say this.
sorry,
The realization I
yeah.
had when I was about 27 and I was in Chicago, playing in Chicago, and I thought, this is what you dreamed of. This is what you've been trying to get to. Enjoy every minute of it. And so whenever I've been on the road, when I was on the road with Diane Schuur, she was very, 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 very difficult person to travel with. She was, the guys in the band were great. The tour people were great, but she would not always perform at the height. It was weird. She was difficult. That's just being honest.
Yes.
But I never let anything take away from my joy in being on that stage and walking, going to the Sistine Chapel in Italy, in November when nobody's in there. If you've ever been there, you go there in the summer, there's a line around the block to the Sistine Chapel. You go in there and you can only be in there 10 minutes. And there I am on tour. I'm in a nice hotel near the Vatican. Go into the chapel. There's nobody there hardly, and I'm being paid to be there. I mean, so to me, I enjoyed every minute of it. And my friend, one of my friend who's toured with a lot of people was like, yeah, man, it was miserable, and there I am playing, and he was talking about playing at the Sydney Opera House. He's going, and it's the scene, not because the band was so unhappy, and I just thought, I'm going to enjoy every minute of this, and I did
love that.
every minute. I did not miss a minute of it. I have not missed a minute.
I love it.
Ever not.
And that's one of the points for me. It's like, okay, you had this awareness, you had a real consciousness of what you wanted to be, and you laughed like my little grandchildren do when I say, oh, were you embarrassed? And they're like, no, why would I be embarrassed? Like, they think it's a dumb idea. Just like you said, why would I feel like an imposter? Because you had seen yourself as that for as long as you could remember. So stepping into it was like, oh, I'm home. This is familiar.
Yes,
this is
I'm
comfortable.
there. I got there. I've arrived.
Yes, you've arrived. And the spirit, this is the other thing about you. And this, I always say to people, your spirit goes out from you. When you walked in that day, sure, you sat at the table next to us, but there was something about you. Like, you just love life. I can feel that. And you just love what you're doing. And like you said, you don't let anything or anyone take away from the moments that you decide, I'm gonna milk this. I'm gonna feel every great feeling that's available. Yeah. Yes.
Nice restaurant in this nice hotel.
Yeah.
Because I was there. Exactly. I was there with Pink Martini. I probably told you this. And I said, well, I'm going to stay. Everybody flew in. Had a day, played the gig, flew out, and I went to Nice for 3 days, and France. And our tour manager goes, well, you probably want to get a different hotel, Dan, if you're paying for it. And so my hotel in Nice, was $100 a night, a Fleabag hotel. But I mean, when I was in those restaurants eating that breakfast, I felt what could be better.
Yeah,
happy.
exactly.
But it's a long, hard road, and like this, there's been moments of great.
Now let's talk about the hard, because this is the interesting thing, and I won't keep you too much longer. But here's the interesting thing: people say they have these huge dreams. I have huge dreams. I'm living my huge dream. And like you, I'm in the middle. Like I'm not there yet, but when I get there, there'll be something more.
Right.
And so when you, yeah, it's like, it's hard, but not really. It's a joyful hard. I know I'm on my path, so I feel great. What would you say has been the hardest part about your?
Well, I think to be an artist, I mean, I think, I mean, it's, I think it'd be one thing if I had set out to be successful in business, because that's not as, or you're moving up a company, like you're moving up a corporation, but when it's art, music, writing, dance, whatever people, that is, that's personal. And failure in that is sort of a personal rejection.
Yeah. Would you say that the difference, the way I'm seeing it is, like if you're in business and you're moving up the ladder, it's almost like you can see the steps.
Yeah.
I've got to do that, and then I've got to do that, then I've got to do that. But for you just knew, I'm expressing me, putting it all out there, like you say, very vulnerable. If people reject it, they've rejected me. They've rejected the expression.
That's happened. It happens.
Right.
Yes. So there's, so there is, it's certainly, there's certainly, I think that's why I appreciate it so much, is how much heartache there's been. It's the amount of,
the contrast,
the self-doubt, the self-doubt and the, the up and down nature of the, and popularity, is, so it's an incredibly hard thing to do. And I feel, so certainly I've had some luck, I mean, I think it's important to say, and I don't know if you include this or agree or not, but supposedly Will Ferrell, the actor, he's done all those funny movies. I'm familiar with Will Ferrell, but his father, I guess, was an actor or comedian. And his father said to him, somebody told me who knows him, said this, that his father told him, you have the talent to be successful, but you may not have the luck. And there is, I think in anything, there is some degree of good fortune, not, and all you, and, I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I mean, I think you make your luck, you make your good fortune.
That's what I believe. And you are living proof of that.
And that's what my friend who I sub for in Pink Martini, I remember when he was out with a singer named Diana Krall, who was very famous, and I was out with Diane Schuur, and I go, yeah, it's too bad there aren't more good gigs out there. And he said, well, we seem to be doing okay. Sort of as if to say, well, we've made it work. But I do, I do feel sometimes I feel like I've I have not had a great deal of misfortune. I mean, it's been hard. It's been a struggle. There's been self-doubt. There's been darkness, but nothing's I never broke my hand. I mean,
that's right. Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing, I think, as I was sort of rounding up all the things I could find on you and your attitude, number one to your success was persistence. That's why, I believe luck is what we make, because we say, like you said, I can't not do this.
Right.
I'm doing this. And you were prepared to ride the waves that were going to take you there. And even when you got smashed at 33 and everything, the band broke up, you weren't like, oh, that's me done. So, okay, well, now what? You always were looking up and towards the next horizon.
I would wake, I could die. There were all these times in my life where, where I remember, one time hearing a record by a guy who was 19 years old, Pat Metheny, great guitarist. And I was like 15 or 16. I bought his record. I put it on. I was just like, oh my God, I give up. And of course, I didn't, I tried harder. And then when I was 19, I heard some music on the radio and I went, if that's my friend John Stoll, I'm never going to be good enough. I give up. And they go, that's John Stoll on the guitar, but I didn't give up. And every time that I felt like, boy, there's nothing happening. Actually, I'll just tell this story. I've had a very fortunate and, I'm no star, I'm no rock star. I'm not rich, I'm not super famous, but I'm very successful. in my field and I'm successful to me, I feel like it's
Correct.
worked out pretty well, by my terms for what I do, given who I am. I wish, of course, things could have been, things could always be better, blah, blah, of course, but I was, and as I tell all my students, so there's an organization in town that does music, and a friend of mine is the leader of it. And they have government grants and they put on sort of weird music by underrepresented composers. So anyway, I just called him out of the blue and I was like, I would like to play guitar in your group. And he goes, well, I do most of the guitar playing in the group, but maybe sometime. But Dan, you know what we want? I want you to put out your record on our record label. And so I said, oh, how would that work? So at any rate, I ended up, that made me really go make my record, finish the tunes, go to New York, make the record. And then when I put out the record, they partnered with me and did a lot of work for me. And they wrote arrangements for a large ensemble of my music. And so I've recently gone out and been doing concerts with a big ensemble, like 12-piece, 14-piece, all new stuff of my music, and the record's been very successful, and they've helped put it out, and they helped make the t-shirts, and they helped promote, and it's been played all over the world. But it's all because this one phone call I made, just because I was like, boy, I'm not working as much as I should. And this is when I'm 64 years old. I'm not doing this, I'm not a part of that. I should go be a part of that. Well, now I realize I don't want to play guitar with that group. It doesn't pay very well, and the music's too hard. But that one phone call that had nothing to do with anything ended up always that, so I do always make that next phone call. I always get up in the morning and try and make something.
Exactly. I love that, because that, we teach a lot about intuition, and that's what that was. Like you said, out of the blue, I just thought, I'll just ring them. So that's the difference between you and someone. Someone who's out there.
This dumb phone call, one phone call really helped my record. It helped me get the record done. They were a huge help on the, and none of this, I wasn't calling about that. I was calling to come up and play the guitar on these, not, and it's the kind of the success of the record and the extra financial success. And they were like, oh, we'll help you make a GoFundMe, which I would never do. And they produced the GoFundMe, which, raised like $5,000, which helped make the record. But I would never make a GoFundMe on my own. I mean, all this stuff came out of it. And it's that phone call that, so I'm just, to anybody trying to do anything, you just, you never know, you keep turning over rocks,
when you look back on your history and you think, it's been hard, but when you made those breakthroughs, at least I know this is true for me, that was the easy part. Like, things dropped in my lap. I did lots of stuff, and then something drops in your lap, and it's easy.
Right. Exactly.
That's been your experience.
So this was really a surprise, so now that I have these arrangements that they had written, I'm writing to these colleges in Los Angeles and all over. Hey, I not only can come play, but now I have these, I can play with your big band. So I do feel that. And so this, and when I teach lessons, which I teach a lot, which I love to do, I love teaching, I love my students. And a lot of people don't like to teach, I love to teach. I love the student. My mother was a piano teacher. She was, her students' kind of counselor and friend. And I'm that for my students, these teenage boys, or even adult, 60-year-old men, 30-year-old men. Guitar lesson is a time you can, it's a little bit like a counseling session. You're having trouble with your girlfriend, or you're having trouble at work, it's a safe space. And, I'm always trying to instill that in them, make that, don't give, and I have a student, I go, wait, you just told me you were going to go out and sing on the street. Well, you told me you were going to write a song each week, you say you're going to do this, but you don't do it, No, I'm going to do it. I'm really going to, I'm always, and you can see who's going to succeed pretty quickly by who's out there trying, who's beating the
doing
pavement.
what they say.
And
people
absolutely can be amazingly successful. And so there's an artist I've played with, a bass player who I won't mention, and his music is hard to listen to. It's very, you can either say it's very artistic, or, it's very much him, but it's almost unlistenable. And he's played all over the world all his life because he has
Wow.
never not stopped selling that music. I mean,
Yes.
he's not rich from it, but and not many people like it, but he has gotten, I mean, he is the guy who has gotten his art out there that
Yeah.
nobody really wants. And he
Yeah.
still gets it to people,
Still out there.
to make a living. And
Yeah.
so I always feel like, boy, you got no excuse. If he can sell that, I can
Yes.
sell my music,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your you said so much good to learn from every playing situation. I love that. Like, and you're still saying that. Like every
Yeah,
situation you're in, there's so much good to learn. And you said there's so many good players. Never rest on your laurels.
yeah.
And that shine, like even the day, that's why I thought you were joking when you said I was up playing for the Prince last night in the Palace, and we thought, oh, because you just said it like, yeah, no, I was just down the bar having a beer or whatever. It's just like, of course, everyone
it was a
does that,
funny gig.
you
Yeah.
know.
Great, yeah, it was a good gig. But no,
Yeah.
I hear anybody play anything cool, and I think keeping open-minded, like I was saying
Okay.
earlier, how
Yeah.
a lot of people, stop going down the path, they've stopped at 30 or 35, they just stop evolving as
Yeah.
as artists or as people or as, and I feel like I can, I've always got my ears open and every
Yeah.
time you play you can get better every time you do
Yes.
anything, you can get better. My teaching is so much better. My teaching improves all the time. I mean, I'm
Right.
always
Because you're
seeing
living it.
something, and I've taught millions of lessons, and I'm always like, whoa, that's a better way to get that idea through to somebody.
Yeah. I love that. The end of one of the interviews you did, you said you feel your success was about the fact that you had limited natural ability, but you made up for it with a lot of desire and drive and that fear of failure. They were the things, your desire, which did drive you, and that fear of failure. It's like, no, I'm not going to let it beat me. Because we only fail when we say done, don't we? That's the only failure.
Yes. Yeah. And
Right.
there's, of course, there's times where, like I say, times where I'm like, oh man. But that just made me get back down and practice more.
Yeah, more. Yeah, I love it. I'm going to let you go, Dan, or at least end this. I'll just have a quick chat with you before I do let you go. I want everyone to look up When the Night, or at least just go on Spotify and look up Dan
There's
Balmer.
lots
He's
of
got
different, lots
so
of
much.
music of all kinds of my music that
Yeah,
is some that is, more adventuresome, some that's more, easy
yeah.
listen to mellow. The right songs, there's a record on Spotify and all of those called Through These Years. And that's all really nice, a lot of it. So I've done all kinds of music that's more
Yeah.
demanding to the listener and music that's easier. But yeah, you have to, so don't give up after one tune if you don't like it.
No.
Go
And
listen to the tune When the Night.
I
Yeah.
agree. After I met you, I did. I went and had a look at a lot of your music, and it is very,
All
there's a
over.
great variety there because you've been going a long time. So yeah, it's brilliant.